afternoon. I'm King, member of Group 2. The reason I'm here today is to present to you about the financial analysis report of Đức Thành Wood Processing Charge Stock Company. First of all, I'm going to introduce our team, which has 5 members: Tuệ Nghi, Hiền Mai, Bảo Nghi, Thanh Ngân, and me. You will meet them in the next section. I have divided my presentation into 5 sections. Includes part 1, an overview about the wood industry. The second one is introduction of Đức Thành Charge Stock Company. The third one is analysis of income statement and balances. The fourth one is ratio analysis, and finally the conclusion. Let's start with a quick look into the industry. Now I'd like to look at this table. We can summarize some ideas such as the wood industry needs large capital investment. Most of the input material are grown domestically, but they are mainly being distributed to export. And the manufacturing process requires a large amount of skilled labor. Secondly, this graph will give you a breakdown of the supply and demand for the wood products, which is increased dramatically over the years. We also know that the wood products are mainly focused on the middle income household. And the consumption trend of wooden toys is also increased year by year. Another thing is wood processing enterprises are concentrated mostly in the south of Vietnam, including firms such as Woodcraft Village, household production, and business production and processing enterprise. And the demand for wood products from abroad is still very large and potential, especially in developing countries in Europe. But at the same time, the wood industry has to face the challenge about the strictly regulation of origin. So that's all I want to say about an overview of wood industry, to give a quick awareness of its function as well as the trend and potential in export. Now let's move deeper into the main point. We are going to analyze the company in the wood processing industry to see its financial situation. And I will introduce to you about the Đức Thành Wood Processing Charge Stock Company. You may already know about it, but just in case you don't, Đức Thành Wood Processing Charge Stock Company was established on 19th of May 1991, and up to now they have 30 years experience of production and business activity. The company is proud to become a leading brand of kitchen, household, and children's toy from wood in Vietnam, with more than 1,200 systems, agencies, supermarkets all over the country. And they also has exported to more than 45 countries around the world. Đức Thành has 2 factories in Ho Chi Minh City and 1 in Bình Dương City. Along with the modern technology line, the company is ready to meet large and small orders with high technical requirements. They have a team of more than 1,000 employees, are skilled, knowledgeable, and have many years of experience. Regarding products, Đức Thành has applied the International Quality Management System ISO 9001 in 2015, and they obtained the safety certification according to Europe standard and Vietnamese standard. The products are guaranteed to be exported to many countries around the world, especially the countries that require high quality goods such as Japan, USA, and UK. This leads me to my next point. Thanh has also gained a lot of achievement in their development, as you can see on the screen. Now let's turn to their operating supply chain management. We can see on the screen that their material are 55% from rubber wood, and they were put into factory to create their specialized product. When the kitchen product is the core product, and then they are mainly exported to other country. Last but not least, I want to talk about their activity in financial market. As we can see, the ticker symbol of Thanh is GDT, and they are issued in the HOSE stock exchange, and the EPS from 17 September 2021 is 58,200 Vietnam đồng. In the financial market, some of GDT rivals company can be mentioned as we can see on the screen, and we will focus on GTF, which is the company have the highest market capitalization and is a GDT's strongest competitor, and it will be analyzed together with GDT for comparison in the following section. So that's all I want to say about introduction of Thanh Wood Processing Trust Stock Company. Thank you very much for your attention. Please welcome my teammate, and they will give you a more understanding about this company and its financial situation.
Hello everyone, my name is Bảo Nghi and I will present to you about the balance sheet of Thanh Company through the last 3 years. As a whole, we can see that Thanh Company has a relatively stable performance in the last 3 years. The total current asset of the company slightly decreased from 2018 to 2020, with 86.4% in 2018, 87.9% in 2019, and 74.3% in 2020. Despite the decreasing of the current asset, the total non-current asset of the company just fluctuated in 3 years, with 13.6%, 12.1%, and 25.7% respectively. In addition, the current liabilities increased by 7.3% from 2018 to 2020. The non-current liabilities somewhat steadily grew, with 1% in 2018, a slightly decreased by 0.1% in 2019, and raised to 1.1% in 2020. On the other hand, the stockholders' equity hit the lowest point of 67.8% in 2020. Now we move to the net working capital of the company. The net working capital of GDT also fluctuated in 3 years, with more than 200 billion VND in the end of the year 2018. It increased more than 19 billion in the next year. But in 2020, the net working capital of the company decreased more than 62 billion VND. The decreasing could be the result of COVID-19, the pandemic, the economic, or the changing in the market. Despite having decreased in the last 3 years, the numbers decrease weren't remarkable. Now, to have more specific analysis of the balance sheet, we will compare GDT with its competitor, Thanh Company. First, we can see that the current liability of Thanh was 23.8%, 27.2%, and 31.1% respectively. It was much less than when we compare with its competitor. Thanh in 3 years increased by 51.7%. in the total current liability. The non-current liability of Đức Thành was fluctuated in 3 years, with the highest number was 1.1%, while Trường Thành hit the highest at 34.5% in 2019, which was 33.4% in difference between two companies. Since the total liability was not significant, the equity of Đức Thành was considerably steady with 75.2% in 2018, 71.9% in 2019, and 67.8% in the last year. While since 2019, Trường Thành has received the negative value for this category with 0.7% in 2018, negative 29.4% in 2019, and negative 26.1% in 2020. Moving on to the non-current asset, the GDT has an impressive number through 3 years with 86.4%, 87.9%, and 74.3% respectively. At the meantime, its competitor hit its highest point with 25.7% in 2020. Although both companies decreased in the performance, we can see that Đức Thành still remains the company as considerable stable range. When we compare with its competitor, it is easy to see that Đức Thành has a better management in finance of the company, and in addition, Đức Thành were also in a less risky position than Trường Thành company. That is the end of my presentation, and next, Mai will be present to you about the income statement of the company.
Hello everyone, I'm here and Mai, and I will present to you the income statement of Gỗ Đức Thành Joint Stock Company. And now we first come to the total operating revenue. The total revenue of the company is split to 400.4 billion in 2020 after the decrease in 48 billion. And importantly, that despite the serious development of the epidemic, the company operates stably and somewhat developed. The Trường Thành company has much larger but total operating revenue than Đức Thành company. And in 2018, Trường Thành has 2.7 times higher, and we see both companies decrease in 2019 and later rose in 2020. Now we come to the cost of goods sold. It changed from years to year in the value, but increased in the common side of income statement, and it's reached to 275.64 billion in 2020, increased from 64.16% to 68.84% in total sale. The cost of goods sold fluctuate in the period, but slightly decreased and dramatically increasing in 2020. Besides that, the increase in revenue reflect in the demand of market, then lead to the rise of cost of goods sold due to the purchase more input material. However, although the cost of goods sold quite high, 68.84% due to operating income still only reached at average 26.86% due to 3 years, and therefore the business should find a way to reduce the cost of goods sold to save cost and increase the profit. Now we compare to the Đức Thành. Trường Thành seems to spend a lot of the cost of goods sold, accounting for more than 100% than Đức Thành, in accounting for 189.57 in 2019 at 18, and really reached to the 175.8% in 2019. Meanwhile, 2020, Trường Thành slightly reduced but still higher than Đức Thành. Now we come to the total expense. The cost of goods sold is the cost of doing business in the income statement. However, we make it clear in the previous slide. So here the pie chart is explained for the income statement of Đức Thành in 3 years. The selling general general and administrative expense and financial expense are accounting for a large proportion in the total expense of the 3 years. The selling expense of the company slightly increased from 60.9 to 18.5 billion. The G&A expense company just fluctuated and hit 19.7 billion. The financial expense also the same trend and peaked at 3.5 billion in 2020. And interest expense is increased gradually while the other expense has the opposite trend. We find it better to use the common side analysis for this part to compare to the direct competitor. Both companies invest mainly on SG&A and financial expense. In 2010-2018, selling expense of Đức Thành company accounted higher 2.36% than Trung Thành, and however Trung Thành increased sharply and decreased slightly to 8.01%, still higher than Đức Thành. For the G&A, Trung Thành tend to decrease sharply while Đức Thành fluctuate a stable range, and Trung Thành peaked at 41.50% while Đức Thành only 5.33%. Regarding to the financial expense of Đức Thành company, it slowly decreased to 0.23%. Meanwhile, Trung Thành only peaked at 1.98% in 2018, then fall into 2 years later. In the contract, the interest expense, which is account for the significant proportion of the Trung Thành total expense, hit at nearly 16% in 2020, and this expense of Đức Thành is stable, and the company is effectively use the company's resources contribute to the reduction of the cost of the corporation. Therefore, is a very good influence in the business resulting Đức Thành company compared to the rival company. Now we come to the non-operating gain and loss. Trung Thành Corporation has a multi-level of organization structure, so its income statement has gain and loss joint venture and association. Meanwhile, Đức Thành is a choice stock company, so it doesn't have any in this account. So Trung Thành gained more than 2.46 million in 2019. In the next 2 years, constantly losing, and this affects the operating income in the company, leading to the poor of the company performance than Đức Thành company. In the addition, the other benefit of the Trung Thành company lost nearly twice of its value. And although Đức Thành company has fairly stable growth in the profit. Now we come to the earning per share. In 2018, the earning per share of Đức Thành company is 5,492 VND, while the Trung Thành is negative 3,333 VND. In 2019, Đức Thành has rapidly decreased while Trung Thành is slightly increased but still negative. Luckily for both companies, in 2020, Trung Thành has increased into 3,369 VND. Đức Thành increased to 4,584 VND, an increase of 7.2% compared to the 2019. And next part is for Tuệ Nghi, and Tuệ Nghi will present to you the all ratios.
Hi, I'm Nghi and I'm responsible for the ratio analysis. After the presentation of Bảo Nghi and Hiền Mai about the balance sheet and income statement, we've already had the figure to calculate and analyze the ratios. Now let's get started with the liquidity ratios, which include current ratio, quick ratio, and cash ratio. Regarding to the current ratio, Đức Thành company tends to decrease this ratio, but it is still larger than that of Trường Thành company. And though the company ability to cover short-term debt is reduced, they are all greater than 1. That means affordability for short-term debt is entirely possible. Come to the quick ratio, we can see that the quick ratio is greater than 1 too, indicating the ability to pay short-term liabilities by using cash or assets that are easily converted into cash for immediate repayment. However, the company's quick ratio tends to decrease over years, but compared to the rival company, Đức Thành Group still has a much higher quick ratio. Now we come to the cash ratio. Compared to the above two indexes, the cash ratio is quite low, proving GDT's ability to pay in cash is not guaranteed at all. This ratio is even smaller than that of Trường Thành company in 2020, although the previous 2 years were larger. In summary, the company's liquidity has shown quite well. However, it was decreased for 3 consecutive years. It will be better if, in the future, GDT has more effective investment policies and management of short-term assets. Now, we come to the long-term solvency ratios. From the data, we can see that the total debt of Đức Thành is always less than 0.5, which means that most of the company's assets are financed by equity. And through the graph, this ratio is increasing gradually over the years. Compared to the rival, Trường Thành company is higher than Đức Thành company. This shows that Trường Thành company has a higher level of leverage and therefore a higher financial risk. Now, let's take a look at the debt to equity ratio. Based on the figure in the data table here, the company has less financial difficulties and is not difficult to access long-term loans. Meanwhile, this ratio of the rival company is very high in 2018 and negative in 2019 and 2020 due to the negative equity. So it means that Đức Thành company has better long-term solvency than its competitor in the same industry. And move to the times interest earn ratio, we can see that the company's ability to pay interest on debt is very positive. Moreover, the company always has the ability to pay interest much higher than its competitor. However, it is facing a downward trend of this ratio, so GDT should have appropriate policies to improve this in the future. In summary, the long-term solvency of Đức Thành Group Stock Company is very good compared to the rival company in the same industry. Now we come to the efficiency ratios. Regarding the inventory turnover, in the first period, Đức Thành inventory turnover ratio decreased, which led the day sale in inventory to increase too. However, this index has tended to rise in the second period. In other words, Đức Thành has improved their inventory management process well. Through the chart, it can be seen that compared to the rival company in the same industry, GDT's inventory turnover is always at a good level. Now, let's take a look at the receivable turnover. Like the inventory turnover, this ratio has a similar trend. Compared to the other company in the same industry, Đức Thành receivable turnover is very good. This shows that Đức Thành company has surpassed competitors in the same industry in debt collection process and credit policy. And the last one of this ratio is total asset turnover. When comparing this ratio with the rival company in the same industry, we see that the total asset turnover ratio of Đức Thành is higher, showing that the company's asset utilization efficiency is quite good. In general, the efficiency of Đức Thành Stock Company has been shown very well for 3 consecutive years. Although asset management performance deteriorated in 2019, the company was very quick to improve the situation. The company should strive to maintain such growth in the future so that it can be even more successful. This is the end of my presentation, and the next one will be presented by Thanh.
Hello everyone. My name is Thanh and I will present the profitability ratio and market value ratio. So in the profitability ratio, we have three main ratios. That is the profit margin, return on assets, and return on investment. So the profit margin ratio of GDT is on a minimal decrease with only 0.04 over the past 3 years, and a similar pattern happens with the ratio of return on assets and earning before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization, with the figure dropping with only 0.05 and 0.04 respectively from 2018 to 2020. However, the ratio of return on equity has a mild downfall from 0.34 to 0.27. Overall, the company needs to pay attention to the efficient use of assets, the turnover, and rationality of the assets used. So the next part is the compare the GDT to the TTF. So when we compare the figures in Trường Thành joint stock company, it is worth noticing that the figures in GDT is comparatively higher than that of TTF. So in particularly in 2018 and 2019, the profit margin of GDT is over 0.23 and 0.21, whereas the figure in TTF are only minus 0.37 and minus 1.39. So regarding the return on equity, the ratio of GDT is also positive and higher than that of TTF. This shows that the use of the company operating capital is quite efficient and reasonable. So in 2020, the ratio of EBITDA of GDT is nearly double the ratio of TTF. This can indicate that the performance of the business is relatively good. The higher the index is, the more stable it is for a long time. So overall, it is observed that the use of the company operating cash flow is quite efficient and reasonable compared to one of its main competitors. Due to some minor decrease in the profitability ratio of GDT over the period, GDT should pay more attention to the efficient use of assets, the turnover, and rationality of the assets used. So next part is the market value ratio. We have three figures: price earning ratio, market to book ratio, and enterprise value multiple. So at the onset, it is clear that the price earning ratio of Đức Thành joint stock company is significantly higher than that of TTF, except for a certain leap in the ratio of TTF. For example, in 2019, the figures higher by 7.55 than the TTF. So from 2018 to 2020, despite some variations, the price earning of Đức Thành joint stock company mildly grows 1.2 times. This ratio is relatively stable compared to that of TTF, and Đức Thành joint stock company ratio is comparatively higher than its competitor within some periods and expected to become a growing firm. Next one is the market to book ratio. Despite some variation over the period, GDT market to book ratio is on a minimal decrease at only 0.06 over 3 years. However, when we compare to TTF, the ratio of GDT is more stable and has no negative value. Moreover, the market-to-book value of GDT is higher than 1. This might indicate that the company is trading the stock price for less than the value of the company assets. Next one is the enterprise value multiple. Overall, the figures measure the total value of an enterprise in the Thanh joint stock company, progressively increasing over the period and substantially higher than one of its main competitors in the industry. So, general comment is that the market value of GDT fluctuates a great deal over periods of time and is substantially influenced by the business cycle. Despite some variation in the ratio, the Thanh joint stock company is expected to grow and becoming a growing company in the next few years. So the next part is the project conclusion. So looking back at the history of revenue and profit growth over the past time, since 2009, the revenue and profit of GDT growth over the past time, and it has grown by 130% and profit has grown by 159%. So through the above analysis, the financial of GDT may show some changes, but there are no abnormalities in the entity financial status. And the ratio of liquidity, efficiency, solvency, profitability, and market value has been steadily improved over time and are significantly greater than one of its main competitors in the business. So the last one is that due to some time constraint, lack of experience, as well as technical problems, there are still a lot of flaws in this analysis. Furthermore, the study is quite stereotypically, so there will be some discrepancy in the results. So the last part will be the references. Here are some websites and sources that we collect the information for the report. So that is the end of our group representation. If you have any further question, please comment below. And thank you for your listening. Goodbye.
I'm an icon, man. I'm a girl about a 10. I should fuck her in the Benz.